And we are live back in the TRU-U studio for the 69th episode. Today we are blessed to have Miss Deborah Foy on with us. And Deb is also a coach with Novus Global, who discovered her passion for the human race after receiving her own coaching experience through a transformative season in her own life. She fearlessly left behind a successful IT career to embark on a new adventure in the coaching space, and since has reinvented herself into a six-figure executive coach. She simply invites people, teams, and companies to flirt with their greatness and live out their best versions of themselves. As an associate partner and coach for the Meta Performance Institute, she believes that everyone can transform their life and live the life they were meant to live and fulfill what they're capable of. And her story is living proof. Her life's mission is to create a space for people to redefine, reinvent, and live fully alive in what's possible. And her deep care and inspirational ethos has led her to become a sought-after coach for Fortune 500 companies. Miss Deb, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Ethan. It's awesome to be with you.
I know I always have so much fun with you. I'm excited. Deb and I have spent we got the chance to get a little coaching in with each other, which is always fun, and we're in breakout rooms together, and I just love your energy.
Yeah, same.
And you're up in Michigan for context. Is that where you're
Yeah,
hiding out at?
yeah, that's where I hide out at. Yep, that's where I
Yeah,
get in trouble.
riding your trek bike around up there, aren't you? Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
We've joked here in this space. Deb's avid. You work out a lot. You're tell us about your. Let's start with that. Start a little off topic. The working out. Your biking, and your daughter I think also did some stuff too. What's
Yeah,
that
well,
like?
actually, I used to be a personal trainer. Um,
Okay.
back, I've reinvented myself several times. So, but I was also a marathon runner. So I've run 10 marathons and I've done a handful of triathlons. And I think that passion's passed on to my daughter. So she competes at Liberty University on the triathlon team, and then just recently walked on and made the D1 track and cross country team.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Proud mama moment. And that's
Yeah.
a lot of experience yourself. How do you think that actually, because that's fascinating how you were at that high of a level competing in that space. How is that translated into coaching?
Yeah, definitely. I believe it's really, it was some of the foundations beside my work experience that had led me to coaching. And I think the performance side of being an athlete really ties into like, what am I capable of? And I think from a physical standpoint, when you're working out, like you really have a lot of tension about what are you capable of? Are you capable of running a marathon? So the very first time that I was contemplating to run a marathon, I think all of us go like, I'm not so sure I can run one, and then not only do you run one, then I got bit by the bug, and then you want to get better because one of those tens were the Boston Marathon. So it was like, oh, am I capable of running a marathon? Oh no, am I capable of running an elite marathon and qualifying for it? So you continue to expand what you're capable of. So it was just part of the foundation of me becoming a coach.
Did you have some of that? What am I capable of meta in your blood before? It sounds like boil over from. Is that yeah?
Yeah, I think it was the start, but then coming into the coaching world really expanded that for me.
Yeah. Um. So on your journey to becoming a coach, what were the biggest breakthroughs or experiences that stood out for you to become a coach,
Mm.
and being what stands out for you on your journey here?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for my journey, my own personal journey, and then the journey that I walk with my clients is how, as human beings, we get in our own way. There's so many elements of, the narratives that we have around certain things, or what we see as possible, or just how we see life in general, ourselves, others, and the world, and how that can just really get in the way of the very things that we really want to enjoy and celebrate. And I love that space with clients because I remember it so vividly of kind of running up against that mirror and seeing that's the moment that I call of getting a glimpse of yourself in the mirror, and you just get that visual of like how you're getting in your own way, and there could be many things that do that.
Yeah, ownership, right?
Mhm,
Like, which is one of the most resistant spaces I find in coaching too, is like that look in the mirror.
mhm.
It's, oftentimes well, I've noticed myself and others in coaching that it's really easy to come up with other reasons outside of ourselves of why things aren't going the way that we want them to go. and
Absolutely, it's always
and then
something else.
yeah, the transformation happens when we stick to the ownership side of things. Like, how am I contributing to these experiences or this world around me?
Absolutely, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
any like I love that topic. I'm wondering what we could dig into with that. Is there any experiences like you've had with clients or yourself that like
Mm.
were really like powerful ownership shifts?
Yeah, I mean, I've had many executives that I've worked with, high level executives that have done a lot of leadership things, right? Like I think as organizations and just um, leaders in general, we can become addicted to like uncovering, new formulas or new information. And I think what really in the whole ownership scheme of things is how we can then take those epiphanies and understandings and concepts and actually apply them into our life of transformation. So I've been on one person comes to mind that I was coaching, and they had done a host of leadership classes and leadership seminars and leadership programs with their company. And he literally said to me in the moment, because when in the coaching moment, right, it's the rawness of what's coming up for people. And he said, and he had that glimpse of himself in the mirror in that moment in time and said, wow, I had never experienced such a powerful moment, that he then took into and actually did some work around and pressed into some uncomfortable aspects of his leadership. And he said, I've done so many things, but there's not been one thing that has really been a sustainable change for me. So he actually, what he uncovered in the coaching space, he then took to his team and then kind of flushed it out with his team and started to then lead differently and was getting
Yeah,
different results.
this will be fun to go like to talk about teams and organizations with you because you have a lot of experience in that. And I'm wondering like ownership in teams and in companies, like how big of a deal has that been? Like, and like what are some of those
Mm,
experiences or lessons, or like what was
mhm.
that like because there's a difference between individuals and then taking it into like a team and a company and a culture. Like,
Yeah,
what stands
yeah.
out for you?
Well, I think so often when I experience coaching a leader within teams, is that they kind of use the analogy of we kind of just show up and make the donuts, right? We just show up with our teams, and we have each of us have these systems that we bring to the conference room or to the project, and we then operate in those ways, not really realizing how we then interact and how that impacts the team and how that impacts the results. And then when someone or the team is getting coached, they begin to realize that very thing that very thing that we bring with us, our narratives and all those things, has significant impact in the result of that project or that team.
That's really powerful to think about. Like the like a lot of leaders or managers or whatever is like they kind of watch over or what's the word? Um, yeah, supervise it rather than like lead from the front or like lead by example. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what's coming up for me. I'm like, wow, how powerful is that when the leader takes ownership and then they follow suit.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and when it was, as you were saying that, what comes up for me, and I see often, is that when the leadership starts to take a new level or a new narrative around that aspect of it, of ownership, the whole team then elevates their level of ownership as well, which is a great dynamic.
Yeah, that's interesting too because it makes me think about other organizations or other relationships that we have in our lives and how ownership can then open up opportunity for growth for all of those, like intimate ones, community driven ones, whatever.
Yeah, because you're coaching the entire person, so it leaks out in every aspect of their life
Yeah.
in significant ways.
That's really fascinating because I haven't ever really thought about how ownership is like. Well, I'm sure it's come up, but I haven't like sat and like, wow, ownership opens up so much opportunity for connection and intimacy and
Mhm,
new vision.
mhm.
It's really fascinating. Ownership's often the stickiest or the one of the ones that I poke. You got to kind of get poked on a little bit. Like oftentimes people don't want to accept that. Like how are
Mhm.
you contributing? Every experience I have is an experience that I create, which
Yeah, it's hard to
um,
swallow,
it's
right?
a hard one to swallow. Yeah. Like, what do you mean every experience I have is an experience I create? You got to be kidding me. That's not,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, that's a hard
interesting.
accept sometimes.
Yeah. Is
Mhm.
there any, well, I already asked you for a story, but is there anything else in that, or like even like thinking about ownership and how it's related to teams and culture and shifts or like relationships? Is there anything else that comes up for you or that you've noticed over
Mm,
the years of this
yeah,
work?
yeah. Well, I think, I would say the sister or the brother to that, the ownership would be awareness. I think in the level of ownership that we have or don't have or choose, I think a big component of that is awareness. And what
Mm,
is the level of awareness that we have, not only in our own being, but exteriorly um, to us. And so I find when I coach teams and individuals that their level of awareness starts to expand. And so does their ownership typically. And there's tension within both of those pieces. But it can be a healthy tension and an expansive as at the same time, because then there's growth in that space when that happens.
yeah. And as a coach, we often like are searching for tension. Almost, it feels like at time, like or like that gap or what's
Mhm.
missing or where are you stuck. And um, even as we're talking, I'm like, yeah, even like for an average listener here that has a team or a relationship or anything going on, like when you're stuck or when there's tension, that's like a great opportunity to love on or to ask questions and get curious around is when there's
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, but it's also counterintuitive, I think, for teams, right? Because if there's conflict or if there's something tension, typically as
Mm-hmm.
human beings, we want to avoid it. We in most cases, people see, I think, the tension, conflict as a negative when in the coaching space, right? We invite people to that very space that's where the magic can happen. That's where, yes, you can be uncomfortable, but be okay with the uncomfortableness because there is gold, I call gold, and growth
Yeah.
underneath all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to live in it, but to sit in it and to explore in it, to get away from it, to truly break away from it because I love the counterintuitive example or like the experience because it is because we want to get away from it, but it's like you go towards it to release that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah,
It's interesting.
yeah. It's a fun
Um,
space.
yeah. Yeah. It's fun talking about ownership. Is there like any, uh and we can go down the ownership path or any path really that you want to go, but I'm wondering just what else stands out for you and like I guess breakthrough is the word coming up for me. Like, is there other moments of breakthrough besides, I mean, that's a big piece of it, I feel, but
Mhm. Yeah.
what are the other juicy
Yeah,
components?
I think part of the a juicy component for me is that I think when I first start to coach teams and individuals, people do look outside of themselves for the solution. Um, but I think coaching does bring it back and go like, because that's what shows up the most, I think, in the teams and individuals is that, what is it inside of you, and how can you be the best version of yourself? And
Mm,
when leaders begin to ask themselves those types of questions, and they then start to live that out, and then invite others to also live that out, that's when we see cultures change significantly. They start to change, and it's not and it's a neutral positive way. It's not like in a negative way. It's wow, what what is that about? And to stay curious, right? That
yeah.
neutral and curiosity to go like, good to know, don't shame out about it, but like, wow, what is that about? What is there? And that's just such a great space.
It reminds me of tribal leadership. Have you read that or
Yeah,
like level 5 and like the we
yeah,
attitude of that?
yeah. Hmm.
Like that, like when leaders truly grasp this, and then there's that impact that they want to invite in for the world. It's like that we energy. Is there, what would you share, or is there an experience you have with tribal leadership or that sort of?
Yeah, it's so interesting because yeah, I do have an experience, so when you coach people, they talk about the culture like it's a different thing. It's like an entity outside of them. And then, it's like, no, everything, you're contributing. You're a co-conspirator to your culture. And so like, how are, not that you want your leaders to treat you X, how are you leading? Because everyone's a leader, right? No matter if you have 5 people or 500 people that you're leading, it's like, the whole concept of, be that leader that you want. And so often I have those conversations is, how is your leadership qualities impacting the culture? And
Mm,
how do you want that culture to change? And so
mhm.
what are you going to commit? What are those nuclear things that you can commit to impact the culture in the ways that you want to impact it? And I just recently got off a call that coaching team, and it was like they committed to something that they've been talking about for quite some time, and they finally had stepped into that uncomfortable space, and their leaders were like thrilled with it.
Mm.
And so it's like, what are those things, and they could be big or small, right? That you're going to then be committed to, regardless of what happens around you, that you're committed to because you have a vision. And the vision might
Mhm.
be, how am I going to impact the culture? And then practically step in to that and then see the results, right? I always say you might face plant, you might stub your toe. That's
Yeah,
okay. Right?
yeah. That's why we
Um,
call it shitty first draft, right?
right, exactly.
We do that. That's a term we use, is shitty first draft, because every first draft is shitty.
That's
And
right.
even if it's a great one, there's always improved versions of it. But I love the co-conspirators to the culture, because we're always contributing,
Hmm.
whether we think we are or not. Even by withholding, we're still contributing. So
Hmm. That's right.
it's really powerful to notice that, like when you're
Hmm.
speaking there, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, like it makes me think of like, you know, what are the blind spots that we all carry? Like,
Hmm.
um, God, it would be great if I remembered what this little square diagram was, but in Gap community we learned, I think actually I do remember it. It's like what are the blind spots that like are completely blind that I don't know and the world doesn't know, and then what am I
Mhm.
blind of that the world knows, and then what am I clear on that the world doesn't know, and then what are we both clear on, and like filling out that little diagram of like what is all this.
Yeah.
And this is a great chance where the lovely feedback that we all really just love to get from people um, is an opportunity. And actually, no, we typically as humans don't like feedback, but
Right.
you
I haven't
crack me
met
up. Your
one yet
laugh
that
cracks
loves
me
it.
up. We all love feedback. It's great. No, it's a great chance though. Like with our blind spots, even asking, hey, partner, lover, spouse, friend, colleague, what do you think are my biggest blind spots? Like,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah,
for those risk takers in the audience, that's a good one.
that's right.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. Like, we are what's the classic line where we are all capable of more than what we're currently creating, and that we're all getting in our way somehow.
That's
But I
right.
love that lingo of like we're contributing to everything. Like
Mhm.
we're constantly contributing. So um yeah, what's that other we just came out with just making me think of these little diagrams now. For some reason I got like a visual brain on this podcast. But David Miller, the was the what's broken, what's working, what's confusing, and what's that little
The
diagram that
domain, the domain.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's what's working, and then what's confusing, what's broken, and what's missing, I
Yeah, as
think
it
is what it is.
relates to work,
Yeah.
home, play, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting, like even just those questions, like sitting. That's what coaching is slowing down and getting curious and us asking powerful questions or noticing things and guiding people.
Yeah.
But just sitting in those are like it's just
Powerful.
powerful.
Yeah, powerful. Yeah. And it's so often, I mean, prior to coming to coaching for me, I I I didn't come from a space to go like, I'm just going to sit in those powerful questions.
Yeah.
But then just as you said, just to sit in those powerful questions and marinate on them and then decide, get clear on what it is that you want
Yeah.
and then define those things.
Yeah, I've had a lot of doers, and I was a big doer for a long time too, like in the coaching space, so just like action, and a lot of our the especially like sales or business or worlds that we live in and operate in, and especially in the information world or the fast-paced world we live in,
Yeah.
it's like go, do, take action. Like there's like that tendency I've experienced, and I've seen in a lot of other people, is to skip out on that, slow down and look at like what is even my vision. How am
Yeah.
I contributing to the way things are,
Yeah.
what, and asking those other questions like
Yeah.
how. Yeah.
You know what I love also is like when people start to get really reflective and say, what experience am I giving others?
Mm,
And when you have a team and to go, uh, to refer to them as an associate. And so what does that associate need to be the best version of themselves? And, and,
wow.
and what do they need to start doing or stop doing, and how can I contribute to them being their best version of themselves? Like, this is such a powerful place that, like you said, not too many teams and not too many cultures really put stock in those spaces.
Yeah, what do they need?
Hmm.
um that's a really good one. um in Gap we also said like what are you longing, or what are they longing for, because
Right.
there's like and often all of our complaints, not often, I think they all have a longing beneath them.
Right.
um which is interesting.
Yeah.
um yeah, this is a great ownership chat. What else, Deb? Where else, or what's standing out to you in this season of life? Like, where are you growing? What are you experiencing? What's new for you?
I think the energy conversation also is an interesting conversation of, because our goal live, they all go hand in hand to one another, right? Growth, ownership, love, integrity, vision, and energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find, like, when people really start to unpack individuals, teams, and cultures, when they start to unpack how they really distribute energy, what
Mm.
creates energy within teams, how do they distribute energy, how do they waste energy, right? And I've been talking to a lot of teams and cultures around momentum, motivation, especially today. Like in today's world, we're still coming out of COVID, and it's like, so many people have talked about, Groundhog Day. Every day seems like it's Groundhog Day, and like in Groundhog Day, what's the energy like? What are we capturing? What are we committed to capturing the energy, and how are we going to then um, really impact others in the energy for teams, for projects, for sustainable change and energy? Like I do references a lot that I think prior to coaching, and I find this when I start to work with people, is that they have just settled for a certain level of energy.
Mm.
Oh, it's Monday. I just was listening to something the other day about people just have
Mm-hmm.
this energy. Oh, it's Monday. It's the mundane Monday, and maybe
Yeah.
Monday I'll have different energy, and then Friday I'll have so different energy. So it's just so interesting how we, as a society and culturally, we relate to energy.
Yeah. To me, the word reactive is coming up.
Mm,
Like, we'll go right back to Big Brother ownership and invite him in and like be like, what energy am I committed to creating? Or like, what energy serves my vision or serves this purpose, serves this meeting or
yeah,
this relationship?
yeah.
Because I
So
think,
often
yeah,
we just gear down into neutral. I think.
yeah, it's like, well, because it's Monday or because I didn't meet my quota or because it's snowing or raining, I'm commit or not even like without even bringing it, like they're automatically like on autopilot to committing to this energy.
Yeah.
Um, which is interesting, like that internal versus external conversation again too. It's like, well, if I take ownership and can, because we do have the ability to choose who we want to be, which is a
Hmm.
really often I think skipped possible like ownership thing for people to understand, is like you get to control that. You really do
Hmm.
have that power. It's like, well, who is the most resourceful max value version of me for this, like today, even like just
Right. But if we have a boss that has a certain, I'll say maybe low level of energy, then I
mm,
think, like, it's not talked about, but then we have to match that energy, because we can't
tell me
go
more
above.
about that. I want to hear more about
We
that.
can, this is
You're
why.
the team queen. You're the team queen. You
Yeah,
got
this
all
is
the
what I found in
you're
corporate America, right? So if
yeah.
there's a leader, if my leader, has a certain level of energy, I can't then show up as a higher level of energy. I have to like match his energy or be lower. I think some of that exists in corporate America, and then then that's how it occurs to us, and then that's the narrative in which we operate in
Mm,
around energy.
mhm. And energy and like way of being too. If
Hmm.
they're I remember when I worked in corporate, even as you're saying that, I was like thinking, visualizing the leaders that I've been beneath in corporate worlds and how their certain topics I don't talk to them about. I just already have an assumption of who they are
Yeah.
and what their values are, that I won't go near that. So it's
Mhm.
really interesting to think about that dynamic, that
Yeah.
dichotomy between, you know, um, man, culture is such a fascinating topic too, and like how much this has to do with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then even when you look at like how we, what I call merit raises, and not all industries are still attached this way, but I know I do a lot of work in the automotive industry, and it's still aligned with, like, right, we're supposed to, as corporate America in the automotive industry, set they're called GNOs, goals and objectives. And typically your goals and objectives are aligned with your merit raises for the year. And so this is interesting, right? So I'm going to set a goal, or a goal that I know I can achieve, so I get my merit raise. So
Mm,
it's set up
mhm.
to go, like, just do bare minimum, rather than if I were to do like our intuitive fence, right? to do something I think is impossible. I would love to maybe set as a goal or an objective for the year, but I'm not going to do that because if I don't hit it, then I'm not going to get my merit raise. Isn't that interesting?
That's very interesting, and you wonder why like like a lot of these corporations or companies are only getting this far, or like aren't seeing new, like what are they capable of? They're incentivizing minimums.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
what was I? I was just reading a book the other day, and it was talking about like how some places really like you like they're still like clocking in or clocking out, or like you have your quotas, your numbers, and like there's that off switch after that, or even like the leaders can invite in like to turn it off after that, or to
Mm-hmm.
not invite in that curiosity. um that's really interesting. Like I want to stay on the team topic because I think you're really like knowledgeable in this space. I'm wondering like what else have you noticed when it comes to teams and how they affect each other in the culture? Like, is there anything else that stands out like that? Because that's a big one. Is there
Yeah.
anything else like that stands out that?
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen teams when yeah, prior to coaching, they had so many things in place that were, I guess they just settled for a certain level of vision, and they had some tension around challenging the vision, not only of the team but of the culture. Like
Mm,
there would be some people on the team that go, that could we could so shatter that goal. And then there'd be other people on the team saying we can't, right? So you have the full spectrum. But then in that team, they would then just go for the path of least resistance, and they wouldn't attach to, no, let's go for the thing that's going to thrill our team, that's going to stretch our team and expand our team. We may not hit it totally, but even if we were to hit half of it, a quarter of it, we would still be beyond what we would have originally tried, right?
mhm,
And so it's really it's interesting to then take the team that I call would settle for the path of least resistance, and then see them as they have experienced the coaching experience to be the team that goes after business that they never thought they could be awarded, and then get
mhm.
awarded that business.
Yeah. How many in that transformation, like how many rackets and
Mm,
like I'm wondering what that process in coaching was like, because to me I'm like there's some insecurities or rackets that are there in the leadership, particularly that have prevented that or
mhm.
not invited in that vision.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I would say a lot of our tools, we uncovered, like they were big rocks that we had to like unearth for them around, their gaps, their rackets, disempowered, or disempowered for sure, integrity issues, within the team or within the culture. And then, the fun thing about broken commitments, right? Because we make commitments, teams make commitments all the time. But I think like the ones that I'm thinking about right now is like, the lack of an integrity around the entire team and the tolerating of the lack of integrity. But the realization of the result of that, and the impact of trust as well, right? When there's broken commitments, and how as teams can we then build a growth process and restore trust versus just continue to eat away at those things when we break our commitments.
Hmm. How often do you see, like, do you in teams, do you see it? I'm sure you see growth happen pretty quickly, but like in transformation within a team, like how do you typically see that go when you begin through like going into this work? Like what are the results that you're used to seeing? Is there patterns that typically occur when people begin diving into this?
Yeah, I think they first wrestle with it, with their own reality first.
Mm,
So at first, people, really rate themselves higher in integrity, and empowerment first, then their reality. Then they get that glimpse of the mirror as it relates to those things. They realize that their vision possibly does not align totally. Um, and so they do those adjustments. They begin to do those adjustments first. And then awareness starts to happen. And then they also start to see those misalignments with other people as a part of their team, possibly, or their management. And then they begin to put it all together.
Mm.
And then it's great when you can do this in a whole cohort and you can grow together. And so it's great when a team does this all together versus individuals or a leader. And then because then you have to bring other people along because that's new to them. It's counterintuitive to what they've been doing, possibly. Um,
Mm.
yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. My brain's just going along with you. And like I feel like after that like phase of like what you were just explaining, and then it like kind of becomes the work is like lighter and you enjoy coming and processing this stuff more, because oftentimes that's my experience is like it can be a little bit grudging right away and there's like that
Mm-hmm.
smack in the face, but then like, you experience that shift and then results begin happening and it can really create that, like you're talking about energy. Like I
Yeah.
think even just from this transformation, energy just goes way up.
Oh, absolutely. One person in team comes to mind where it was like you said, it was grungy and uncomfortable and sticky, I'll call it in the beginning for
Yeah.
this team. And then all of a sudden, the breakthroughs were happening, shifts were happening, the mindset was happening, changes, and what was happening, and then energy started to happen. And then what happens is they were inviting each other into what I call their greatness.
Yeah.
And then you have the iron sharpening iron, and then you have these it's the same day, it's the same concept kind of thing, but yet they're experiencing different results, they're experiencing different energy, they're experiencing new things that are exciting and thrilling, and the
Mm-hmm.
momentum and the motivation begins to change, and now it's like they're on fire. And I'm talking to a whole new set of people than I originally started talking
I
to,
love it.
because all the shifts started happening for them. And it's this great space where you just see people come alive.
How incredible is that?
Yeah, incredible.
That's awesome. We're flying through this bad boy, Deb Foy. I love your energy. I could talk to you for hours. Hours. I'd keep you up late too with that Eastern Standard Time.
That's right.
I love that we're talking about teams, and like I want to like if there's like a message or any like general like for the audience that is a part of a team or has created a
Mm,
team or is creating a team, like how would you speak to them in general about setting out and yeah, stepping into that for a leader of a
mm.
team?
Yeah, I think I really love, I really do invite people around the Go Live acronym, right? Get really clear and unpack and flush out from individual perspective and a team what your current reality and what you want to build as it relates to growth, ownership, love, integrity, vision, and energy. And you're going to say, love, what the heck? We're in corporate America. And it's like, no, like, do people actually love to come to work? Do they love what they do? Do they
Yeah.
love their colleagues and associates? Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do they show up? Because, like,
Yeah.
would you want someone who loves what they're doing and loves the people that they're doing it with, or would you want the opposite? And like, how could you press into those things? Do you want someone who shows up and is really excited to grow, or do you want someone who is just comfortable? Right.
Yeah. That's
It's
great.
like when you get really clear on those things, and then what are the visions? What are your individual visions, and how do they align? And like,
Yeah.
we're all here, we all have the same amount of hours, we're all on this planet, right? Like, what is it that you individually and as a team get to impact? And how
Mm.
excited are you to do that? Like, that you can live like that again. And would you want to live like that again? And how are you going to live like that again?
I love it.
Yeah.
Transform your teams.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Miss Deb, where can we find you? Where can we stalk you? Can we get your website, Instagram, email? Where is Deb?
Yeah. So you can email me at Deb at debnovus.global. Sorry, at Deb at
Deb
novus.global.
at
There's
Global.
so many handles. Sorry.
Oh,
Deb
you're
at
good. You're
novus.global.
good.
My website is debfoy.com. Simple.
Love it.
And
Fantastic.
then you can always reach me Novus on the Novus website, Novus Global, right?
I love it.
And my Instagram is Deb Novus. So I'm all about Novus, and
I
I'm
love
all
it.
about
Novus,
transformation, man.
She will transform your team, ladies and gentlemen. She will hold the space for you to transform your team. How about that?
That's right. That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Deb. I always enjoy chatting with you every chance I get. Your energy is amazing, and this is a great episode, and I can't wait to share it to the world. And yeah, until next time, Miss Deb, thank you. All right.
Thanks for having me.